soy de la marca Firenze y pues a continuación voy a hacer una breve introducción de quién es Winka. Winka Dubbeldam es fundadora y directora de Archi-Tectonics desde 1994. Es una firma certificada por la WBE, que es Women's Business Enterprise. Cuentan con oficinas en la ciudad de Nueva York, Estados Unidos, Ámsterdam en los Países Bajos y Hangzhou en China. Su conferencia se titula Strange Objects, New Normal. Esta conferencia será completamente en inglés. Vamos a tratar de evitar la traducción simultánea lo más que se pueda, sobre todo para no perder el tiempo y aprovechar más el espacio de Winka. Muchísimas gracias, Winka. Winka, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And we are so happy and excited to have you today. So we can start when you decide.
Great, thank you so much. I was just going to let my office know how they can join. Hold on one sec.
Okay.
Justin, I'm sending it to you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Informal start. Thank you so much, Valeria. Gracias. I'm so happy to be back in my favorite city, Mexico City. I would say I'm a closet Mexican. And I want to thank Firenze and Art Diffusion, especially also Virginie, for inviting me to give you this small talk. I understood that is to help temple housing or housing for people in need. So I'm super, super grateful that you're doing that. And I'm also super happy to offer some help as an architect if you need that. So that's on a side note, but I think it's important that we all look at that. And you'll see why I'm saying that in a minute. So I will start sharing my screen. Here we go. Everything okay? You can see it?
Yeah, everything is okay.
Perfect. Perfect. So Archi-Tectonics is a design studio, as you just heard. My Spanish is limited, but I kind of understood. With offices in New York and Amsterdam and in China. And we have several points that we strongly believe in, which I thought I would sort of share as a sort of a summary. Innovation is our mission. Our design process is research-driven. It's analytical, it's rigorous. We develop each project as a unique investigation guided by feedback loops, testing, and prototyping, aided by the most advanced digital design tools. We did not start doing that recently. We actually have been doing that since 1994 when we started, so we were very early in the digital. All our designs are developed in a unique way, achieving projects with character and identity, and we consider the formation of this particular quality as the core asset of every project. This we call actually our strange objects. We are convinced that sustainability is a must, but we also believe that it is a great engine for innovation, not a restriction. We are committed to promoting inclusiveness and diversity, and we do that not only within our team, but also in the way we work on projects and with different clients. We understand that true design leadership entails holistic integration, innovation, and acting responsibly, both globally and locally, to create a future we all want to live in. Here you see where we physically are. You probably can see my mouse. Our office is here in the bottom of Manhattan between the South Seaport and the Financial District. Actually, both partners live in Brooklyn and we are just one ferry stop away from the office. So we travel by boat to work. And on the right, you see the building we're in. The little red bar is where we are. We have the front of that building. And we look out over the river, so we're kind of looking back at our own house. Mentally, we are in a different space. We are, as everyone is, in a time capsule caused by why am I currently on Zoom rather than having tequila with you in Mexico City is COVID. And not only is COVID a time capsule mentally, but also physically. This means that all of us, as little identities, are sitting somewhere in the world, all in a special little bubble called Zoom or whatever other internet platform you're using. In March, we actually had a 30% reduction in pollution and in nitrogen dioxide air pollution. Not enough to make a difference in this world, even though we all had that period at the same time. Of course, as we all know, we are in the middle of forest fires, droughts, superstorms, and essentially, just us Americans alone, we are only 5% of the global world population, but we managed to use 25% of the world's resources, and we cause 30% of all the pollution worldwide. Garbage dumps are the worst methods. But the good news is that recycling and composting prevented 85 million tons of material away from being disposed only in 2010, which was up from 18 million in 1980. So make that fast forward to 10 years later. This is really, really important. We always think that this is a minute difference. This is actually a really big difference. But it's also expensive. The historic US rainfall caused massive flooding that displaced over 30,000 people. And I know you have some of that in Mexico and definitely the people in Colombia. And it damaged and destroyed over 200,000 homes and businesses. The cost for Harvey, the storm Harvey, the hurricane, are approximately 125 billion, which is a close second to Hurricane Katrina, which was $160 billion just to deal with the aftermath. And of course, this is all thanks to creatures called humans, and hence we are in something called the Anthropocene. The Anthropocene is a term coined in around 2008, when we realized that it's a period of time where human activities have impacted the environment enough to constitute a distinct geological change, and where humans have been the dominant influence on climate and the environment. I am going back to something that was very similar in a way to what we're feeling now, just in a very, very different way, because it was not physically, but it was business-wise in 2008. And I'm going back there because not only is 2008 bad for all of us financially, locally first, and then globally later, but especially for architects. You know, we architects, we tend to look at the stock market because our businesses come and go literally with how the architects operate with developers and how the stock market influences us. So here you see the recession by numbers. Not pretty, you know, forget millions. At this point, we're in the billions of all the money that was lost. But we also realized that we really cared, and that we cared for the fact that we were still the lucky ones, and that there were other people that were much worse off than we were, and that we could actually help by doing some work pro bono. We started looking at pro bono work not only to do that, but as we say, we really feel innovation is a tool and an engine through energy saving, smart skins, prefabrication, and renewables. So at that point, I had met through a friend, Magdala Cooper, who has the Magdala Cooper Foundation, and created something that was quite beautiful for the orphans in Liberia. As you know, Liberia had a very, very long civil war, more than 15 years, and it devastated the country. And Magdala had already started helping kids with education and food, but realized it was really important to give them also housing. And you can see here why. It's actually quite developed, Liberia, but through the civil war, it's quite dire, and especially Monrovia, the capital, was quite destroyed. So she wanted to start an orphanage and a school, and we offered to help with this. And we quickly realized, looking at this situation, that rather than a big building, which you typically think of when we're thinking of an orphanage, it was very important to think of it more as a sustainable village. So we made an MCF Academy plan that held dormitories, classrooms, library, dining hall, and open classrooms for kids to do their homework, but also gardens where they learn how to grow vegetables and understand how to grow plants in general. We very quickly realized it was very important to be sustainable there. It's not easy to get any water or electricity. We found a great site close to the airport in Monrovia, just outside of the city, just because the city was in such bad shape. And we developed classrooms, as you can see here, that catch the water, store the water in tanks underground for periods that have great drought, so no water. And we also started thinking of the building having a double skin, natural ventilation, and so that there was natural airflow and good cooling, because of the double roof, also not overheating of the space. Here you see the dormitories with a similar layout. So again, the double roof, and also outdoor spaces for not only circulation, but also larger areas for homework. We thought it was very important to use local materials and local labor. We actually taught the contractors how to make brick patterns or brick blocks that were perforated, and we used recycled glass bottles to make the perforations. And we used bamboo weaving, as you can see here, and bamboo poles for the structure. Of course, this was not easy because the budget was very, very small and a lot of fundraising had to be done, and we helped quite a bit. But because we were so excited, you know, we realized we were not just giving help, we were getting major mental support and incredible inspiration from working with the people there. And because we were so excited, we started actually getting people excited helping the school and the orphanage. So Trespa, a Dutch company in cladding, offered us to create the slats, help to create the slats, so the secondary skin, which is made from an amazing material that is maintenance-free, completely resistant against great humidity, and doesn't warp or break. Archi-Tectonics gave us their overstock. So all the lights they had in the US that were going back to Italy because they weren't sold in a specific time, rather than shipping them back to Italy to be recycled, they gave them to the school. So we actually had fabulous lighting in the place. And then my other friend, who builds very, very large solar farms in the US, SolarStar, offered to do all the solar panels, including all the generators and the storage batteries, allowing us to not only generate solar for the orphanage, but also to sell it back to the grid of the airport. So this was all quite exciting. Here you start to see close-ups of the interior areas of the circulation area of the dormitories. Here you see the dormitories from the outside. You see the skins and the way the buildings are wrapped in double skins. And then here is actually, this is one of the meetings with the kids in the school. They all just got pink backpacks they were super happy with. The day I left, I actually asked them all to make a drawing for Magdala, the organization, and to make their favorite drawing and to give it to her the next day. So we didn't tell her that, so she was quite surprised that happened. So this was an amazing project and incredibly rewarding. Fast forward, we learned from actually working in Africa quite a bit. So thinking sustainably is quite logical when you're out in the middle of nowhere where you don't have electricity and you don't have regular source of water. But you realize that a lot of these things count globally everywhere, and that smart skins and passive solar and energy saving and prefabrication renewable resources are really urgent everywhere. So the same Trespa showed up when we started thinking about an 8-story townhouse that is just a townhouse for one family, where we're really trying to think of it as a self-sufficient structure in the middle of Manhattan to reduce energy use and to make a climate that is almost like a microclimate or a biome for the family itself. When we realized that the existing building, which is a 4-story townhouse you see here, was added on by almost a similar size structure, we felt that it was important to introduce a 3rd structure and to make the building kind of almost like a new building. And that 3rd structure really creates its intelligence and smartness of the building. But also that we made this skin extra large, which means it's much bigger than just wrapping the two early, the 1st and 2nd structures, hence creating extensive outdoor spaces in the front by allowing the balconies of the fire escape to remain, on the top by creating an exterior room, a roof terrace that is completely wrapped by the trellis. Now also, of course, because of this secondary skin that you can see on the right here, we also were able to have excessive vegetation climbing over the building and adding humidity and shade, extra shading. On the top, there is actually a cutout, which is a meditation room for the owners. Then here you start to see how this large skin wraps around the building and how it opens. So the idea really being that if you open it in winter, you get solar heating. And if you close it in summer, you actually get natural ventilation and cooling. So this open and closing for us was really important. We coded that a little bit in the pattern of the facade, where you see horizontal slats for fixed areas and a more random pattern that was designed for the openable parts. Also thinking we wanted these openable parts, like what I'm doing with my fingers, if you can see that, to have sort of feathering, so that the patterns transform when they open and change their character. And then what we often do in our office, and I think it's maybe a bit closer to industrial design, what we do is that we test materiality and design and performance in the prototyping phase. So we actually do one-to-one prototypes for almost everything we do in the office. And in this phase is what we do, what we investigate, what we call strange objects. So we find characteristics, or we test out weird effects in this phase rather than doing everything in the computer. And we add in this phase materiality and often also changes in texture and material because of the way we investigate this. So here you start to see what we investigated with the feathering, so that when these panels are actually open, they have extensive fingers poking out, and when they're closed, they're completely flush and smooth. And then here you see, we also tried actuators, so that in winter they don't have to go outside and they can just push a button. This sound is not exactly something you would hear. This was just for the test material that you heard that. And then here you see the transformation of the building, which is quite fun. So on the left, you see it open, the fingers poking out, and you see how it's actually quite open, the building. And on the right, you see it closed. So you see how the building actually quite drastically transforms as the panels open and close. And then, of course, inside, you see, this is in the summer when it's also privacy, of course. In New York, you have a lot of people across from you. So this is the living room. On the bottom of the building, we actually meticulously restore the old structure. It's a 1920s building, used to be a little warehouse. So we expose the beams, the bricks. And then in winter, you can actually open these panels and have the sun heating the space. So it's quite as you can see, an interesting, it's almost like it's a computer drawing. This is actually the actual living room. And then, of course, 8 stories for one family. It's quite extensive. So we have a glass elevator that goes up and down with a long slot that gets south light in the back of the building, in the stairs, where we find an 8-story high staircase that goes all the way up to a skylight above it, where you also see basically the trellis, the climate skin above it. And then here you see me standing there. This is actually part of a larger movie you can find online if you go to Surface Magazine. But this was a little trailer for it, which actually shows very nicely how the top of the building has a very light atmosphere, very double height spaces, very different than the lower, warmer part, which is the existing building, and how easy it is to transform this skin and trellis. The next project I go into is something we call think shapes. We believe that architecture is getting more and more solid and substantial, very much away from maybe modernism, where everything was plainer and cold and devoid of any ornamentation. We are actually interested in something called digital craft, where we think that by working digitally and using digital tools, we can embed patterns within the surfaces themselves. So that way we look for individuality and character in the projects. And we think that prefabrication prototyping leads to branding of the project or of the businesses of our clients. So this is a wellness project where we help the startup company, a new meditation company, to figure out what kind of spaces they should have. It's in Chelsea, Manhattan. And you could say it's a solid, but an ethereal solid. It's solid in physical form, and it is spiritual in the mental space. So we felt very much that this space, this meditation space, should be a unified surface that completely wraps around you, and especially when you lay down or you sit, gives you a complete cocoon-like feeling. But that from the outside, we didn't want to give that away. So we have this space inside that is this, what you call a grid shell, a spiraling grid shell. But on the outside, we cover that with a skin that goes up to the ceiling, which makes that these large, extra, huge elements are kind of wobbly in the space and completely hide the function of the meditation inside. And also actually because of that, give the inverted double skin we just saw before. So where the house had an outside perforated skin and a solid skin inside, this has the solid skin outside and the perforated skin inside. So this is obviously for meditation. We tested this out in the office. This is actually where I'm sitting right now. And this is our client here, our dog that is always in the office, that also have meditating. And what we were doing here is basically figuring out what the physical space was that was comfortable to meditate, but also to be able to move and to relax your arms in these exercises. So obviously we're all very happy doing this. And then we started detailing these spaces further. We felt it needed portals, because you are going through a change in your mental and spiritual being. It takes portals and transitions. And we studied the grid shells and looked at it. It's basically called an syneclastic dome, an elliptic paraboloid. The shape, the spiraling actually helps in strength and creates a structural grid shell. And we rigorously investigated the diameter of the poles as well as the density of the poles to figure out the best configuration for the space. So here you see what I meant before. So although this is one holistic space with an open oculus on the top, it's actually closed on the outside to the ceiling, which creates this in-between space for us. So I would say this is the most simple space to look at. It's almost like a bamboo garden you're in, but then it hides, and it's the most engineered space that we almost developed, because it has millions of little micro speakers around the space to make sure the sound is perfectly equal. We filter the air and add aromatherapy, and we have very intricate lighting system that helps with your circadian rhythm. So it helps against depression, it helps against moodiness, wakes you up in the morning, relaxes you at night, and all those good things. So you see this a little bit here. I'll give you a mini meditation. what was really important for us is actually, as you see the light going down here from the top, is that there would be a low horizon of the light. And it was developed because it reminded me of the ocean or the desert. And if you're a meditator, you might know it's very easy to meditate in the ocean or in nature. It's not that easy to do it in a big metropolis. So this was there to kind of help people get to that point. Now, of course, you know, this unit had to be prefabricated, one, because we wanted to develop it locally. It had to be, we wanted to develop, the company was supposed to develop worldwide. The client was really interested in being sustainable, so we developed everything from bamboo, but also instead of construction drawings, we developed a manual that was distributed to people to fabricate things locally. So we developed a one-to-one prototype in Irvine, California. As you can see here, so our 3D models went through to a big robotic arm that from the files created a one-to-one prototype for us that was built in the factory of the company. It's a car design company, so we often work with car designers or industrial designers to refine our detailing and to understand thinking between architectural design and industrial design. We feel that that's really where the future lies for us architects. And here you start to see that color I showed you before. So the entrance portal and the diagrid shell as it starts to become structural. Now, what I didn't explain before is on the bottom, the edge of the curved edge of the dome has a bamboo curvature that on the inside are benches. So the idea is that it's non-judgmental. So we allow people to meditate either sitting on the bench, sitting against the bench, or sitting free in the space. And I'll show you that in a moment. Now, prefabrication is not only because it's pragmatic to be able to fabricate locally and think globally, but also because it's clean fabrication, it reduces the waste, and it is a very fast installation. So for a commercial space, that's extremely important. But also the fact that it reduces the use of material. Although bamboo is a renewable material, it reduces the amount of material. So here you start to see the details we developed actually with the prefabrication company, Tietz & Bacon in Brooklyn, so a local company. And you start to see parts of the benches being developed. And then, of course, our drawings. So here, this is actually the air conditioning runs through the seats. The air comes out behind the frame. The frame is covered by a sail, actually made by a sail maker that normally works for sails on sailboats. Now you start to see this wall going up that is majorly insulated. So air coming out here, sound coming out from the micro speakers in this extra space, and lighting recessed in the base here also. So actually this bench carries all the intelligence of the space as we need it. It's quite beautiful as a structure. So this is the beginning of the ring as we develop it, and it had to be hollow because it's light to transport, but also because it had the air and all the other things in it. And then here you start to see how it's installed on site with the air popping through it here, the insulation we have added, the skin on the outside. Here's the sail is not yet up. And then from the outside, as I said, you have these huge, bulky, massive elements hanging in the space, very lazy, relaxed elements. But honestly, no one knew what it was. So a lot of people actually just walk in to find out what they are. As they have a quite big presence. So you see there's two in the space here. And then the inside is very, very calming. So it really is quite a transition going in it. This is the darker blue colors. They're actually morning colors to wake you up. Reddish colors and warm colors are actually colors that calm you down at night. So this is a morning meditation. You see the bench. We developed seating with Ligne Rosé. And then the portal and the Oculus. The Oculus inspired eternity, openness, transparency. And then the bench as you see it develop. So it's a very easy, warm space. What was very exciting for us is that Wired magazine called this one of the 25 best buildings created in 2016. And it was quite amazing to just have built this small meditation capsule and to be part of 25 real masterpieces. So yeah, that was a highlight for us. Another highlight for us in a year later in 2018 is that we won the Asian Games. This is the Olympics in the Asian part of the world. It's for 2022. It's a 116-acre park, 47 hectares, and 7 buildings, among which 2 stadiums. We did not win this alone. We had great team members. We worked with Malk, landscape architects, Thornton Tomasetti engineers, MIC is mobility in chain, and they design anything that has to do with pedestrian or vehicle movement, accessibility, traffic flows, and things like that. And we call it a proto-park here because we actually think of it in a very particular way. I'll come back to this image in a minute when I explain a bit more, but to illustrate, here are 7 buildings hidden. So you see the 2 stadiums, you see the shopping mall that we created as a valley, as a green valley here, but the other buildings are hidden. So there is a building here, here, and here, and here that are completely covered by the park, and I'll explain that in a minute. So the site was already very beautiful. It's in the middle of Hangzhou. But what we realized for us, it's really a green lung for the city. So much more than the 2 weeks of the Asian Games, we consider it extremely crucial for the city, for the neighborhood. And so we focused very much on making this the best possible sports park and sports arenas, but also very much hybrid buildings that could be much more than just sports. And something for the future of the neighborhood and the city. So we studied extensively how it could be for sports, cultural, food, nature, entertainment, how it could be a connective device, and how the different user groups would use it in the span of the day. So where we started is actually the competition asked for this park is in 2 sections with a river and a road cutting it in half, and they wanted the stadiums right in there. We felt if you did that, it would really make the park the backyard of the stadiums. So rather than doing that, we went through a series of investigations where we looked at the relationship of the retail and the sports and the other hockey fields that we had to place. And we, in the end, realized that we wanted the stadiums to be the activators and generators of the park sections, and that we could connect it actually with the shopping. So that's where we started making that valley I just showed you, to be the ones that connect the 2 stadiums, the hockey field, the hockey stadium and the table tennis stadium, and it goes under the road and under the river, quite an extensive exercise. So here you start to see it, so you see an outdoor hockey stadium, the Valley Village as a park, the green park with pavilions under the road and the river, and then the table tennis stadium. So this is, again, the same thing. So really important is the sponge city. So not just is it a green lung, the Chinese concept of sponge city is very strict. It means that you have to absorb stormwater, you have to filter the water, you have to create basins for the water to hold it. So this is an extensive wetland with promenades along it. We have large ponds here that are reflecting ponds, and we have porous pavement everywhere. So the same for the Valley Village, and both buildings are sustainable as well. Here you see tea houses looking out over the wetlands with local vegetation. We studied local vegetation to make sure that wetlands are really alive and very good filtration devices. In the tea houses overlooking the city and the stadium. And of course, we made playgrounds, areas where you can go skateboarding, outdoor tennis fields, outdoor sports fields, and things like that. And then the Valley Village, so we looked very much into how you could make a shopping mall sustainable. Underground, not sustainable. So we proposed it as an outdoor event that still had green roofs. So that means that we also followed a zero earth policy, which means when we excavated the valley, the earth went on top of the other buildings. So we actually created a beautiful topography without adding earth, but reusing the earth that we excavated on top of the buildings. So both the wetland lake and the Valley Village created actually the topography of the other buildings, but also cradled the buildings really beautiful in the landscape. So here you see that whole theory. That also means that the garages are under these warm, fuzzy green fields, but they have skylights for natural light and also natural ventilation, as you can see here. And we have wind catchers with solar film on it, so that actually there's ventilation for the natural ventilation for the valley, but also shading, and the solar film actually provides the lighting for the landscape in that area. So here you see that. So here you see a section of the areas that are covered with green roofs, the solar shading devices that you see here, and looking out over the valley. It's a quite, and we're really important. We thought this was a really important area. We really consider it the artery of the park, because it will create social presence and safety in the area after the games, and will allow it to be lively and happening. So here I'm on the road, actually right in the middle of the park, looking back at the stadium, the field hockey stadium, seeing the wings and the green area that is recessed, and there's the shopping area. So it should be really exciting to go shopping there. And then the stadium that you just saw is kind of created, we call it the seed of life diagram. It's a very old traditional diagram that is very mystical. And is, if you look it up, it's really intense. So basically, we created a circle, a recessed circle in the landscape for the hockey field, and the same circle or ellipse for the roof of the stadium. Again, to make the building hybrid, we wanted the field to be really recessed as a landscape feature in the future, so you could have concerts and other things outdoor. And this wing is a single span wing of 125 meters. So it's very, very long. It's a 5,000 square feet arena. So really, by designing the arena, we also created the lobby behind it. All the services are sitting in this little gutter on top. And then the wing covers it all, as you can see here, with two large trusses that really span the whole 225. The landscape folds up to come into the building. And the building inside is again renewable bamboo. The frame of the facade is actually made from recycled wood beams with steel mullions. And here you see the effect. So because I wanted this to be a clear span, the engineers had to make a big ring around the wing, which I thought was actually very beautiful. But talking about massive, this ring goes from 1.5 meter diameter to a meter diameter here. So it's a very, very massive wing. But as you can see, because it's so large, it actually is quite in proportion. And then here you see that the building is just a very simple building. The stadium really creates space for the lobby. The curvatures make it one sweeping hole. The curvature of the roof creates great shading for the viewers of the game. And then here you see how it sits in the landscape. The recessed field is really 5 meters at the deepest point, so it's quite excessive. It's the whole bottom of the first arena. Very important for us, because it also means that that building really sits in the landscape rather than on top of the landscape, as I said, which was really important for us. So you see how open it is and how easy accessible. And then in the front, how the landscape folds up into the building with this double curvature glass screen. The other stadium is an enclosed building. It is a table tennis stadium. The opposite, it cannot have any wind, no air movement, tiny ping pong balls, super sensitive. but also sustainable. So a lot of features are developed like that. And we wanted it to be a hybrid. So we love local elements. So we're actually, for the roof, I forgot to mention that, for the 125-meter roof, we looked at the bamboo and the traditional umbrella in China. For this, we looked at the Kong, or the Chong, as the Chinese say. It's a traditional artifact that you find in old graves, especially around the area the stadium is built. It's very mysterious what the value of them are, but they're all intersections of a circle and a square, and they are engraved with messages, and they're solid. So again, this kind of idea of massive and solid, for us, very important, came as a kind of a major inspiration. Now, on the bottom right, you see that we started looking at the stadium as an intersection of these two volumes, but we very quickly realized it was too literal and slowly started to think of two ellipses intersecting. And we started looking at the more complex volumes we started getting. We realized that stadiums are often white elephants. They're used for the performance of the Asian Games or Olympics once, and then they're empty. So we wanted this to be a future concert hall. And in order to make a hybrid building, we felt we needed slippages, we needed more dynamic spaces inside of it. So what we did is we shifted, rotated, and cut it. And that basically ended up in the final version, which you see actually somewhere here in the middle. And that became our stadium. So covered by a really interesting roof that is self-carrying and is a suspend dome, which means it's very deep in the middle, very light at the edges. And we started thinking about how is this hybrid possible? So we looked at an arena stadium seating, we looked at a theater and made a hybrid for the stadium to be possible for theater, concerts, and sports. So we had to follow also the strict regulations of the Asian Games. And then here you start to see, the other thing was natural daylight. So we created an opening in the middle and a diffuser. So the light was never direct, but really lights the ceiling. Air conditioning is hardly possible in these spaces. So they were actually air conditioning the seating of the visitors because there can be no air movement for the ping pong balls. And here you can see how that looks inside. So again, the natural air, the natural light comes in, reflects off against the ceiling. Seating is cooled from below. The inside dome is bamboo and the outside is a diagrid. And then the intersection of the two volumes actually created weird bulging. So the glass volume pushes through the brass sheeting of the other volume and really creates crazy moments that we actually never edited. We felt it was really important that this kind of pollution maybe of geometric inflection on the two spaces actually was very important, and the rotational aspect of it also is recorded in that, so it never is a symmetrical building. You're coming in and you're rotating through this space to end up ultimately on the inside. So here you start to see the bottom of the glass, as you see. So this rotational device also means the entrance is not in the center. And then we created a gigantic diagrid for the glass that is steel and self-supporting, and was developed with a very famous facade engineer called Bill Logan, who's worked all over China, Europe, and the US. Probably Mexico City, actually, I think he developed Your Highest Tower also. And he came up with this beautiful idea of eyelids. We wanted to keep the glass planar. They're very large. The glass sheets are 6 meters by, I think, 3 meters. Trapeziums, and are lifted up on one corner, all in the same direction. So it's almost like a fish scale skin, where the light catches on these silver eyelids that help glass being planar. So here you can see the effect of that. It's quite special. And it's kind of interesting that we love optimization and we love saving money for our clients, but we also love making it more beautiful because of it. So we're kind of, when we say rigorous, we're really trying to be as rigorous as we can on all aspects. So then here you start to see the double height ramps flying through the space that are rotating through, allowing for people to go on exterior balconies or inside of the stadium on different levels. This is inside the stadium, so you see the higher entrances and the lower entrances, and the circular seating as it weaves through the space, and the bamboo, and the lights coming from above. And then at night, it's quite beautiful how it sits in the city and how the lighting is recessed in the surfaces. So it kind of the rotational aspect of it will really come out at night as well. So construction, we had a very short time. The client was a little late with their competition in 2018. We had to open 2022 for all these buildings, all 7 buildings. It's in Hangzhou, China, as you see here. And in one of the meetings, which was a very exhausting meeting, we drove by a big field going to the restaurant, and I looked outside and I was like, oh my God, these are our buildings. As actually the construction side, they had already built the fences. And while we were still negotiating construction details and whatever, they were already building the park and excavating for several areas. So here you see us working. This is with the client. This is our engineer. This is the client. And this is the team of the our own local office there. This is my business partner, Justin. I'm here. This is Mr. Wang, Mr. Hu, Robin and Menge, and my partner, Arthur in China. And then this is the next step on site. So this was still possible. I've been 4 or 5 times on site in the last year. The last time was in November. So luckily just before COVID started. Same t-shirt I'm wearing, actually, you see that here. And now we are in a different phase. So we are currently still meeting. This is with our BIM guy in China. So my office, where obviously Calvin is telling us something optimistic, I guess, about the building, but we are looking at all the different impacts of introducing MEP, structural aspects, getting the lighting in, and understanding all the knots and difficult points of the construction. Here we're going through that suspend dome system, how it's suspending, how it allows the lighting in the middle, how the speakers and the lighting are worked into the suspend dome. So we really thought it was important that everything is embedded, as you see here, which they're doing beautifully. And then construction. So this is it's mostly very misty there, but here you start to see the stadium going up, the seating, the curvature of the seating, the existing river as it's flowing through, the excavating for the valley village here, and then the roof going up, the suspend dome. You see how skinny the members are, and looking up at the suspend dome, it's absolutely fascinating how it sits on all these different points in space. And then here, a little movie. Let me see whether I can change the volume a little for you. Oh, not there. No, I can't. But these amazing precarious working spots for the people. I'll run it one more time. They have about 300 people working on site every day. It's quite amazing. And then this is the lighting. So the park is there are several green houses that are full of trees already to plant this amazing landscape. And there's excessive lighting. So it should be really beautiful at night as it glows for the city around it. And especially the valley village will be a very light, lit, like beautiful artery going through it. Both the stadiums are lit, the lakes are lit, so it will be safe because of the lighting and also very beautiful. And then you can read most of this and more, and what we're thinking theoretically about strange objects, new solids, and massive forms in our book that is coming out at the end of this year with Actar in Spain. Not in Spanish, I think, but I can ask them whether they can do one in Spanish. And we're very, very excited about that. We see this book also a little bit as a manual, hence the perforated holes through the book. A manual that talks very much about what I just talked about, the strange objects, the fact that we develop and rigorously investigate everything in the prototyping phase, and how we feel that architects and should be more like industrial designers and really learn from the rigorous detailing, precise fit, and understanding textures in different ways, like industrial designers do. And we feel that is really the future for architecture. So beauty and character and identity are going to be the most important things for architecture as it responds to climate pressures, social pressures, and equality for everyone. I hope I gave a little glimpse of the office, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Winka.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for sharing your incredible work and obviously your great experience. Si alguien quiere hacer una pregunta, es el momento, puede alzar la manita y con gusto les podemos dar la oportunidad de hacerla directamente, o si gustan utilizar el chat o el cuadro de preguntas y respuestas, nos encantará que lo puedan hacer, sobre todo para que, aunque sea, bueno, pues conversemos unos minutos con Winka. Winka, I love the way you interact with the different brands in your projects. In Firenze, we also have a tailor-made program where architects can create their products, customized obviously to their designs and needs. So I think it's a great opportunity to work together. No? Sometimes we can have a better result.
Yeah, no, that's actually what we do. So in this prototyping phase, I forgot to actually mention that, but we often do that with the manufacturer before we ever get to the contractors. So we develop most of our buildings, most difficult and innovative parts with manufacturers. So we understand how to make it affordably and intricately detailed in ways that are not standard. We believe that things should be made by manufacturers, but not standard, but still being intelligent in the way we use standard and non-standard. So we love to collaborate. We have worked with people in Mexico, in Barcelona, in Colombia, in Germany, in Italy. So we're very interested in developing these things, and also believe that it actually makes architecture not only better and more interesting and more beautiful, but also that it really gives that character to buildings.
Totally. Well, you are invited to our factory.
Love to.
We were pleased to have you. Le comentaba a Winka que en Firenze contamos con un programa tailor-made, donde podemos obviamente hacer en conjunto, en este caso porcelanatos que se adapten a sus diseños, a sus conceptos, obviamente a las necesidades. Y pues claramente es un trabajo que es muy importante, el cual pues bueno, empiece con una visita a la fábrica que está en San José Iturbide, en Guanajuato, ¿no? Y tratar de juntos hacer algún proyecto muy, muy interesante, ¿no? O sea, algo totalmente personalizado. Igualmente, vuelvo a reiterar, si alguien quiere hacer alguna pregunta.
I have a question.
Okay.
Winka, I was wondering, with the project in Beijing and what's going on right now, I mean, it's 2 years from now, but is there some changing that they are asking you already about, I don't know, the distance between the people, or for the moment they are waiting to see what is going to happen in the future?
Yeah, I think China is going through already a month of no cases at all. So I don't think they're worried about it because it's 2 years away, and I think the social distancing at that point in China at least won't be a problem. Of course, what is a problem is global travel. So we all have to get there in 2 years, you know, because these Olympic Games are like major attractors for global visitors. So it really depends on where the world is at that point, and I'm hoping for all of our sakes that we are out of it, because I mean the amount of people we're losing by the day is tragic, and it's heartbreaking. So for all our sakes, I hope we can all sit in that stadium close together, hugging and celebrating that we finished the project, because you know we have to hope for a better future, I think.
Of course. And how are you working in your office right now? Do you have everybody in your office working together, or you have half of the staff at home and half of, I don't know how it's working for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would love to hear how you are working as an office.
Well, in March, we started the first month. We started half the office was at home working and half the office was here. And then we all, by the end of April, by mid-April, we were all at home, and we worked like that till August. And then in August, we were half again, and now we are all back in the office.
Right. And during this time, how are you working? I mean, the Zoom and Google Meets.
It works strangely well. You know, we all have in the office, we have every morning a meeting at 9 and then at night at 5. And so everyone had help and communication. And then in between we had mini meetings like we would have in the office. So I would have project meetings with the project staff. And then, you know, it kind of ran okay. I mean, when we came back together, we did realize we missed some little things here and there. And it was, of course, hard to do site meetings with FaceTime on the contractor on FaceTime. But it also actually worked out okay. And it's, you know, the BIM meetings with the guys in China, and because we had BIM, everyone had BIM, we could actually walk through the project in a virtual way very easily. It's interesting. This happened in a phase where we're all very good and very on the same platforms, and even internationally on the same platforms. So we were surprised that it actually worked okay. We missed each other. You know, we missed seeing each other. We missed Friday happy hour. We missed stupid things, you know, like chatting and comparing notes. And we tried to do that. We tried happy hour with the office, you know, bring your own drink kind of way. But yeah, no, it in the end went okay. And thank God we have work kept going and got new clients. And it's interesting, you know, it's very different. This whole phase is in many ways very different than 2008 when we almost lost the office. And we really worked pro bono because, you know, we had nothing else to do. This time we have work, but it is super demoralizing to just see the pain and the agony cities and families and people have to go through. So it's very, very hard on your physical and mental state, just because it's just inhuman, the amount of pain. We did, I organized at Penn, I organized the summer program for the students in June that was free of charge, where everyone gave pro bono talks and lectures. And it was amazing how many people called me and said, I'll do it for free, even after I stopped asking. And we had doctors helping the students, and the students were designing a COVID testing station. And then we had raised money for awards, so we could almost, you know, sort of give them an internship or employment idea, although it's very hard for them to find jobs and internships. So we gave many, many awards, and we had doctors and industrial designers and graphic designers and architects, very famous people helping. Yves Behar, Tom Main, 2x4 Graphic Office. I mean, doctors from the University of Pennsylvania, doctors from Ecuador, an architect from Ecuador. It was amazing. It was an incredible healing experience, not just for the students, but for all of us involved. It was very special.
We have a question from Monica. What perspectives do you see for the architecture to be able to adapt to this new normality?
I think we architects have to challenge ourselves, no, and each other. I think it's I find the way by working with car designers and boat designers and car makers and boat makers. So, you know, if I can't have it done by an architect or a contractor, then I just go to my family outdoors of architecture and just go to the car manufacturers and the boat manufacturers. So it's helpful to find a future in architecture by being more open to collaborations that not non-traditional, and maybe, you know, work with manufacturers earlier and understand better that there are actually not always the restrictions you think there are, right? Because once you work with an expert manufacturer, they can explain to you that it's actually not that difficult and you can do certain things that are not that expensive. Whereas the contractor will always say to you, that's special, that's expensive, you can't do it. And, you know, that's the reason why I originally, very young, when in like somewhere 98, I started saying, well, this is not normal, you know, why can't I do this? I should be able to do this. And just started talking to manufacturers and found that it was actually very possible and cheaper.
Yeah.
So it was quite an amazing experience. And I also found that I was much more inspired as an architect to work that way because I could invent things. And very funny is that manufacturers have called me later and said, we're still using the materials you developed with us. So for example, I developed with a company called Panelite, who makes really beautiful panels, a very special panel. And we poured resin on the panels. And then Rem Koolhaas in Chicago for IIT, for the university, he used my panels. And I called the company and said, you should really actually pay me. And so they gave me a free glass wall. So, but I was joking, you know, I'm fine people using it. I think it's okay. I like sharing. I'm very open source.
Mónica, muchísimas gracias por participar. Espero que haya contestado tu pregunta. En este caso, bueno, por el tiempo, vamos a pedirles que quienes tengan alguna otra pregunta nos las envíen a experiencia@firenzeworld.com. Se la podemos hacer llegar con muchísimo gusto a Winka. Thank you, Winka. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
It was phenomenal. So we have to say goodbye now. So
very nice to see you.
A todos, muchísimas gracias por conectarse. Ahorita les vamos a compartir la liga para que se conecten a la siguiente conferencia. En este caso es Felipe Mesa y Federico Mesa del despacho Plan B. Winka, obviously you're invited.
Thank you.
Y también si tienen 2 minutos vamos a compartir una encuesta para que nos apoyen con sus comentarios.